Haridasa Thakur's bhajan area. He was born, it's considered that he was born here, lived his younger days here, then he moved from here to Belapur, where we were there for his bhajan before going towards Navadvip. Navadvip, West Bengal is not very far from here, it is right across the stream. This is the southernmost part. We would be in Bangladesh. After this, we would move northwards. In fact, your mobile phone will show home time. This is not the exact time, right? It shows 4:15, but it's actually 4:45 because mobile phone thinks you are back in India. Many pastimes were there of Haridasa Thakur, miraculous pastimes, small, at different places. There is one mentioned here in Chaitanya Bhagavat. There's a story of Haridasa Thakur, a snake charmer and a snake. One day in the courtyard of a rich man's house, a snake charmer was performing a snake dance. He was chanting a special mantra accompanied by musicians playing the mridanga and manjira. Haridas was passing by and stood to one side watching the snake dance. Although the snake charmer was an ordinary human being, by the influence of his mantra, he could dance as though the spirit of the king of the snakes, Anantasesha, possessed him. With an enchanting melody, he sang about the pastime of Lord Krishna in the lake called Kali-yuga, where the Lord had vanquished an evil serpent called Kali-yuga. Haridasa listened intently to the pastime of his beloved Lord Krishna, and he suddenly, moved by ecstasy, he fell unconscious to the ground. When he regained consciousness, he jumped to his feet and roared like a lion, dancing in ecstasy as he babbled with joy. The snake charmer was impressed by the manifestation of ecstatic symptoms in Haridasa Thakur's body and stood respectful to the side. As the various symptoms of horripilation, crying and shivering traversed Haridasa's body, he rolled in the dust, crying in love for Krishna. He remembered how his beloved Lord had mercifully saved the snake Kali-yuga, and as he floated in ecstatic trance, the people around him obliged by singing songs about the wonderful pastimes of the Lord. The snake charmer simply stood to the side, overcome by awe and reverence for Haridas. When his ecstasy subsided, Haridas left and the snake charmer resumed his performance. Everyone who witnessed the ecstasy of Haridasa felt spiritually accelerated, and they smeared their bodies with dust from his feet. However, one cunning and deceitful Brahmana in the crowd decided to cheat the people. He also started dancing. He told himself, I can see that the people are not very intelligent. They are offering so much respect to this low-born Haridasa just because he dances and cries. If I, a Brahmana, who also dance and cry, then they will certainly worship me as well. The Brahmana threw himself on the ground and feigned unconsciousness as though he had fallen into trance. However, as soon as he touched the ground, the dancing snake charmer became furious, picked up a stick and began beating the Brahmana relentlessly. He struck him repeatedly on every part of his body until the Brahmana, howling in agony, got up and ran away just to save his life. The snake charmer then resumed his dance, while the entire crowd stood dumbfounded. At last, a man with folded hands humbly requested the snake charmer to explain why he had stood respectfully to the side while Haridasa danced, yet he had beaten the Brahmana for what seemed to be the same activity. The spirit of Anantasesha, who dwelt within the snake charmer, then spoke in glorification of Srila Haridasa Thakura. The subject matter of your inquiry is very confidential. Although such a topic is rarely discussed because of its highly esoteric nature, I shall nevertheless answer your question. When Srila Haridasa Thakura was dancing in ecstatic trance, each one of us felt our respect and affection for him spontaneously increase. However, the deceitful Brahmana was simply imitating Haridasa in order to get some cheap adoration from the crowd. Not out of love for Krishna, but out of enviousness towards a pure devotee, the Brahmana threw himself on the ground in ecstasy. Furthermore, he interrupted by dancing. Since he disturbed me and tried to imitate the pure devotee, I punished him severely. This arrogant and deceitful Brahmana has no love for Krishna. To receive the shelter of devotional service at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, one has to become pure, free from deceit. By seeing Srila Haridasa Thakura dance, one becomes liberated from material bondage. Even the Supreme Lord Krishna himself dances when he sees Srila Dasa Thakura dance. The entire universe becomes cleansed of all sinful reactions just by seeing Srila Haridas dance. He is truly worthy of his name, Haridasa Thakura, the servant of the Supreme Lord, Hari Krishna, who shines eternally like a full moon in the heart of his devotees. Haridasa is affectionate and compassionate towards all living entities, and he descends as the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord in each of the Lord's incarnations. He is free from any fault or offense towards the Supreme Lord or his devotees. Even in his dreams, he never commits an offense. A moment's association with Haridasa can purify any living entity and assure him the eternal shelter of Lord Krishna's lotus feet. Even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva constantly desire his association. Haridas appeared in the family of a lowly Muslim on the order of the Supreme Lord, just to teach human society that material designations like caste, creed, birth, status, and family positions are all illusory and pursuing them is futile. If a pure devotee of the Lord is born in a low-class family, he is no less worthy of worship. This is injunction of the scriptures. On the other hand, if someone is born in a sophisticated family but does not worship the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, then his high birth is useless, for he lives just like a resident of hell. Just to prove the truth of these scriptures, Srila Haridas took birth in a low-caste family. Prahlad Maharaj, one of the greatest devotees of the Lord, had previously appeared in a family of demons, and Hanuman, the greatest devotee of Lord Ramachandra, took birth in the monkey species. The demigods desire the touch of the pure and transcendental form of Srila Haridasa Thakura, and Ganga Mata also prays that her water will be sanctified by his presence. However, one need not touch Srila Das Thakura. Simply by seeing him, one is automatically freed from the eternal cycle of birth and death. Furthermore, one who sees a devotee who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Srila Haridasa Thakura is also granted freedom from material bondage. Neither 1,000 mouths nor 1,000 ears would be sufficient to describe and hear the wonderful qualities of Srila Haridasa. You are a fortunate soul, for your inquiry has given me an opportunity to glorify the pure devotee and has given you the opportunity to hear the transcendental topic. From the moment a person speaks the name Srila Haridasa Thakura, his ascension to the supreme abode of Lord Krishna is guaranteed. Haridas Thakura ki. Nagaraja, the snake charmer, then fell silent. The assembled Brahmanas and pious gentlemen felt thoroughly satisfied by his glorification of Srila Haridasa. Of course, Anantasesha is a pure Vaishnava devotee of the Supreme Lord and is always engaged in glorifying the Lord and his devotee. This was not his first occasion to describe the outstanding qualities of Haridasa. The assembly accepted the Nagaraja's appraisal of Haridasa, and the love each person felt for Haridasa increased. Srila Haridas Thakur ki. There is one more pastime in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Haridas Thakur walked until he came to the village of Chandapura, later known as Krishnapura, where he stayed at Balaram Acharya's house. Balaram Acharya was the family priest of Hiranya and Govardhana Majumdar. Due to receiving his favor, Balaram Acharya was very attached to Haridas Thakur, and thus he provided all his needs with great care and attention. Haridas Thakur was given a cottage in a secluded place, and he came daily to Balaram Acharya's house to accept prasad. At that time, Raghunath Das was a schoolboy, and he used to come and see Haridas Thakur every day. Naturally, Haridas Thakur was very merciful towards him, and as a result, Raghunath Das later on attained shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Regular discourses were held at the residence of Hiranya and Govardhana. One day, Balaram Acharya very humbly invited Haridas Thakur to come there. Upon seeing Haridas Thakur arrive, the two Majumdaras immediately stood up and then fell at his lotus feet to offer obeisances. There was many learned scholars, Brahmanas and respectable gentlemen in that assembly, and Hiranya and Govardhana were also greatly learned. As the two brothers very respectfully offered Haridas Thakur a sitting place, everyone began to speak about his exalted qualities as if they each possessed 5 mouths. Hiranya and Govardhana were very pleased to hear this talk. When it was mentioned how Haridas Thakura chanted 300,000 holy names daily, the learned scholars began to discuss the glories of the holy name of the Lord. Some of them said, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one is freed from all reactions to sinful activities. Others said, simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one becomes liberated from material bondage. Haridas Thakur protested, these two benedictions are not the true result of chanting the holy name of the Lord. If one actually chants the holy name without offenses, his ecstatic love for the lotus feet of Lord Krishna is awakened. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, when a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is very dear to him, he becomes agitated and thus sometimes laughs, sometimes cries, and sometimes chants loudly and dances without caring for outsiders. Liberation and the destruction of sinful reactions are two concomitant byproducts of chanting the holy name of the Lord. As the rising sun immediately dissipates all the world's darkness, so the holy name of the Lord, even if chanted only once without offenses, dispels all of one's sinful reactions. Haridas Thakur requested, O learned scholars, please explain the meaning of this verse. However, the audience responded, it would be better if you explain the meaning of this important verse. Haridas Thakur said, even before the sun rises in the morning, it dissipates the darkness of night with its dawning light, and thus all fear of thieves and ghosts immediately vanishes. Then, when the sun actually becomes visible, everything is clearly manifest, and people begin performing their morning religious activities and other duties. Similarly, the first glimpse of offenseless chanting of the Lord's holy name immediately dissipates all reactions to sinful life. Then, when one is actually on the platform of offenseless chanting, there awakens a ecstatic, loving devotional service to the lotus feet of Krishna. Liberation is thus the insignificant result derived from a mere glimpse of awakening of offenseless chanting. An example of such an effect of Namabhasa is seen in the life of Ajamila. Liberation, which is unacceptable to a pure devotee, is very easily offered by Lord Krishna. There was a person named Gopal Chakravarti staying at Hiranya and Govardhana's house in their employ. As the chief tax collector, it was his duty to collect 12 lakh coins and deposit them in the emperor's treasury. This caste Brahmana had very handsome bodily features, and he was very learned and youthful. However, he could not tolerate hearing the statement that one can achieve liberation by glimpsing the awakening of pure chanting of the Lord's holy name. Becoming very angry, Gopal Chakravarti began criticizing Haridasa Thakur as follows. O learned scholars, just hear the conclusion of this emotional devotee. After many millions of births, when one becomes complete in transcendental knowledge, one may still not attain liberation. Yet this man says that it can be obtained simply by awakening a glimpse of the holy name of the Lord. Haridasa Thakur replied, why are you doubtful? Shastra clearly states that one can attain liberation simply by a slight glimpse of offenseless chanting. For the devotee who enjoys the transcendental bliss of devotional service, liberation is most insignificant, like the water containing within the hoofprint of a calf. Gopal Chakravarti said, if one is not liberated by such namabhasa chanting, then I shall certainly cut off your nose. Haridasa Thakur accepted this challenge by saying, if by namabhasa liberation is not available, then I shall certainly cut off my own nose. After hearing Gopal Chakravarti's challenge, everyone gathered there became very agitated, and while getting up from their seats, they made a tumultuous noise. Hiranya and Govardhana immediately went and began chastising Gopal Chakravarti, and Balaram Acharya told him, you are a foolish logician. What do you know about the devotional service of the Lord? Since you have insulted Haridasa Thakur, you have put yourself in a very dangerous position, and so you should not expect anything auspicious. The two Majumdaras immediately dismissed Gopal Chakravarti from their service. Then, as Haridasa Thakur got up to leave, they went along with the other members of the assembly and fell at his lotus feet. While smiling, Haridasa Thakur spoke to them as follows, in a very sweet voice, none of you are at fault. Indeed, even this ignorant so-called Brahmana is not to be blamed, for he is accustomed to dry speculation and logic. One cannot understand the glories of the holy name of the Lord simply by mundane logic and argument. Now, all of you please return home and do not be sorry that I have been insulted. May Lord Krishna bestow his blessings upon you all. After returning home, Hiranya and Govardhana ordered that Gopal Chakravarti never again be admitted into their house. Within 3 days, Gopal Chakravarti was attacked by a leprosy, and as a result, his highly raised nose melted away and fell off. Although his toes and fingers were as beautiful as golden champaka buds, they gradually withered away, and upon seeing Gopal Chakravarti's condition, everyone became highly astonished. While considering the wonderful influence of Haridasa Thakur, everyone glorified him and offered him obeisances. Although Haridasa Thakur did not take the Brahmana's offences seriously, the Supreme Personality of Godhead could not tolerate it, and thus arranged for him to suffer the consequences. It is a characteristic of a pure devotee that he excuses any offences committed by an ignorant rascal. However, the characteristics of Lord Krishna is that he cannot tolerate blasphemy of his devotees. Haridasa Thakur was unhappy to hear about how Gopal Chakravarti had been attacked by leprosy. After informing Balaram Acharya, Haridasa Thakur went to Advaita Acharya's house at Shantipur. Sri Haridasa Thakur ki. So, this is the glory of great devotees like Haridasa Thakur. Great devotees are like razor blades. They can save your life by a good surgery. But if we are not careful, we can get cut. So it is said that we always first, before praying for the association of pure devotees, we first pray that we are qualified to associate with the pure devotees. If we are qualified to associate with pure devotees, then we can act in an appropriate way in front of a pure devotee. So what to speak of dealing with the Supreme Lord? So this material life, sadhu sangha, is so important that we learn how we associate with devotees of three different stages, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Devotees who are senior to us, devotees who are equal to us, and devotees who are junior to us. So to all three levels, we need to have an appropriate relationship, a right way of dealing. We don't consider ourselves superior to the inferiors. Rather, we show mercy and teach them. To equals, we be very, very friendly, and together we serve the Supreme Lord. And towards the seniors, we humbly serve them. It doesn't matter who is leading, because going towards Krishna is more important. Whether we are leading or we are led, it really doesn't matter. So whenever there is this situation of seniors, so juniors and equals, we need a situation to deal with that. So that is why Srila Prabhupada created this house full of devotees, different levels of devotees, devotees from different areas, different from all over the world. So we may be knowingly or unknowingly committing so many offenses. So every morning we say, Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhu bhavacha Aditana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Devotees don't take the offense directly. But when devotees are offended, the Lord, even though He does not take offense to him seriously, He will take the offense to His devotees seriously. So we know the story of Ambarish Maharaj. Story is here. Haridas Thakur, lowly born or highly born, educated, not educated, beautiful, ugly, black, white, doesn't matter. So we need to pray to the Supreme Lord and the devotees to go past the externals of Vaishnava. So one has to cross looking at the Vaishnavas materially. So great lesson by the life of Haridas Thakur. We are very fortunate to be here. It is said that if you chant Haridas Thakur's name, your liberation is guaranteed. So what to speak of being in Haridas Thakur's birthplace and being in the bhajan stali of Haridas Thakur, and that too in the association of Vaishnavas. So this is a great, great opportunity. We cannot forget the basic foundational teachings of devotional service. So Dham Seva is very important, just like Nama Seva, Murti Seva, Vaishnava Seva, Bhagavata Seva, Dhama Seva. So one has to, in the middle of many services and important roles we play in different places, it is always good to take some time off to visit dhams with Vaishnavas. We can alone go 2 weeks, go around and come. But those 2 weeks, if we spend with Vaishnavas, the whole experience is totally different. Right? So we are coming here for Dhama Seva, not only Dhama Seva, along with that Vaishnava Seva. And the greatest of Vaishnavas, Haridas Thakur. So we are here. Hari Bol.